Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's up? Welcome in GC Live Monday episode of the show. That smell is football in the air. I'll tell you what, Chris, at the Gamecock Central Kickoff Party, Part 3, 2023, Still Hands Brewing. I was out there and I was expecting the August Columbia heat to just sort of weigh on us all. Don't get me wrong, it was sweaty, it was hot. But did you feel that at the end of the night, man? There was a little slight breeze.
Crispness.
Little crisp in the air. Football is upon us. You could just feel it. You could tell. And we are almost at a game week. We got one more week to get through. Then we will be at a game week. And this week, we'll have really plenty of stuff to talk about as well. Some final storylines. We were gifted with a great storyline, the addition of Drew Tuazama, transfer defensive end / edge, whatever you want to call him, from UAB. And then, obviously, a guy South Carolina has been following for quite some time, Daniel Hill, set to make his decision on Wednesday afternoon. So, pretty much for media people like us, Chris, a gift of a final week without actual football. And then next week, game week, North Carolina talk, final preseason storylines talk, just more stuff than we'll even be able to get to probably next week. So I don't know about you, man. I am pumped.
I'm pumped. You just overwhelmed me. I'm overwhelmed with information overload. It is hard to believe that after this week, we will be in that game week mode where, Monday, we won't have a previous game to kind of recap. But we will have a game coming up to start talking about in earnest and really, really doing a deep dive on North Carolina and all the matchups in the game. Favorite time of year. Looking forward to that. But yeah, dude, there's plenty going on this week, right? Scrimmage, second scrimmage, number 2 is now over. That has been identified by the Gamecock coaching staff as really a key point in the preseason because it's when you really start kind of turning a page. You're getting closer and closer to preparing for North Carolina. You're really, as a staff, narrowing things down. Then, of course, another roster addition in Drew Tuazama from UAB as a graduate transfer. I know we'll get into that. And Daniel Hill, big-time running back target who's announcing on Wednesday, as you said. So, Wes, I just restated a lot of what you said, but I am nonetheless excited about it.
Yeah, this is not a restate. It's not for today anyway. We tell you all pretty much every single show. We're supposed to tell you every show. Our buddy Clint.Hammond is the presenting sponsor of GC Live. Saw Clint on Saturday night. Met Clint's dad for the first time. That was very cool. So shout out to Clint. His wife was there, some other family members, and really had a great time catching up with Clint and catching up with everybody else who was there for the kickoff party. And so obviously we tell you every single time, clint.hammond.com is how you can get more information on Clint. 803-771-6933 is the number for the office. But also, like I told everybody a couple of weeks ago, Clint said best way to get him is actually just to hit his cell phone. That's 803-422-6797. If you need to navigate these waters that are the housing market right now, Clint is your guy, whether that's whether you're buying, selling, whatever it may be, Clint will help you out through the mortgage process. He is a mortgage broker with Movement Mortgage right here in Columbia, South Carolina, across from Dreher High School. So go check Clint out. As always, like I said, man, great to see Clint and appreciate Clint being our presenting sponsor for, a number of years now. Clint was right up front of stage, enjoying some Patrick Davis, and great time was had by all, I do believe. And so, Chris, while everybody was out there partying, South Carolina was about 12 to 15 minutes away via car scrimmaging.
That's right.
So closed to the general public, closed to the media. There were some important people, I believe, that got to go over there and watch the Gamecocks play a little bit. Like you said, man, Scrimmage 2 is a key part of the process. And if you're fighting for a starting job, I don't want to say it's your final chance to make a move. That's not true, but it is a big chance for you to make a move. If you're fighting to be in the rotation versus on the scout team, it really is one of your kind of final opportunities to make a big impact. Now you got to keep fighting, and maybe you impress a guy on the scout team and they say, look, we're bringing you back over. But I got to feel, if I was a player, man, I would have looked at this past Saturday like a game. Like this is a chance to go show what I can do, and not to just bemoan the point, because we've gone over it so many times. But for me, Chris, the question I still just don't have answered is what's the first five going to look like on the offensive line? What is that combination going to look like? And then they always have talked about that. They've given that number, that top 6, that top 7, that top 8. What's that top 8 going to look like? And I am a little bit hopeful now that this second scrimmage is out of the way. Now that we've started into this week, players have Monday off, that when they sort of get back into the routine on Tuesday, that we may start to be able to pick up little details on kind of where they're leaning as far as what this first five might be. Because I think we have a couple of different combinations that we're aware of, but all of them are still possible, I think.
Yeah, and there could even be some there could be tweaks in game, Wes, against North Carolina. We've seen a lot of different combinations. I agree with you. Things have probably narrowed down somewhat, but we know that throughout the preseason, there have been a lot of guys that have rotated in and out with the ones. There was a point in preseason, including Saturday's scrimmage, where Jackson Hughes is pulling down some reps with the ones. There have been times, Wes, during the preseason where Trovon Ball, the true freshman, right? Like Marquis Anderson getting a lot of love this year, rightfully so. But Trovon Ball has come in as a 6'4", 337-pound interior lineman who's a freshman. Does not look like a freshman. He's made some noise, right? You've got Ja'Kai Moore playing inside and outside on the left side. You've got Nick Gargiulo, who can play left or right guard or center if needed, but mostly left or right guard. Sidney Fugar, left and right tackle. Tyshawn Wanamaker working in on the right tackle side. So Cason Henry's still out there. So a lot of different combinations that we have continued to see from this offensive line. And yeah, things narrowed down a little bit more Saturday. Does the staff stick with that? Do they continue tweaking it a little bit more? You know, Lonnie Teasley had told us in the preseason that he wanted to have a good idea of his 5, a good idea of his top 8 by the time that second scrimmage rolled around. So the question that I have, Wes, that will still linger until we find out a little bit more. I want to dive in a little bit more kind of behind the scenes, or even if Beamer or some of the coaches address this publicly, did they find that winning combination? Do they feel like they have it? And I do think that is still a lingering question. There are also some other, questions that I think continue to linger on the defensive side of the ball. What's the edge position look like? Because you do have a new addition to the team who I think maybe you temper the expectations for an impact immediately, but certainly down the road as this season progresses, you could see the opportunity for more of an impact there too.
For sure. And, I think, first of all, with Trovon Ball, man, I think we've mentioned this, but we haven't maybe mentioned it a ton. Do you remember we heard there were some people in the building who kind of thought, look, Ball may not be a spring enrollee, but this guy's pretty far along for a high school offensive lineman. So I would say not a complete shock, but also you always kind of are like tempering expectations, to use that word again, for true freshmen on the offensive line. And, I think he's a guy that there's a ton of respect in the building for how just far along he was as a player. And depending on what service you look, man, I mean, this was a 4-star kid during the process at times too. And I think I remember talking to Charles Power, incredibly high on Trovon Ball as an offensive lineman, and someone that I think we looked at and said, probably is an interior player, but could maybe swing around and do a lot of different things for you, but is incredibly far along as far as your typical freshman offensive lineman. So, maybe he's pushing on into the mix. Certainly, you need to have those guys, even if he's not starting right now. When you start talking about 6th, 7th, and 8th guy, you got to have an idea. What if somebody gets banged up? Chris, game one, I think it's kind of it goes as far to me as what happens if a guy's shoe comes off and he comes running off the field and has an equipment issue, being, you know what I'm saying? By week 3, everybody kind of knows, all right, if that guy goes out, this guy goes in. I know as a staff, you've thought of all those things, but your players have got to be ready and on the ready and at the ready, I guess is the best way to say it, for, I got to run in if this happens. So I think that's what the next, what are we at? The next 12 days, and chop a couple of those off, because you're really not doing any preparation for a couple of them. So the next 10 days is really when you're kind of trying to dive into cutting off those game day questions that may or may not pop up, and trying to make sure all these young players that Shane Beamer keeps telling us are going to play, you got to sort of, all right, all these young guys, they got to be at least ready to an extent before they kind of get thrown into the fire.
Yeah, they do. And there's, kind of a cut line. There are certain guys that it's safe to say, whether it's a freshman, Wes, or even some veteran guys, where the staff has been able to kind of narrow this down. I mean, that's the terminology I would use, and say, look, this guy's role this year is realistically scout team. I know you talked about that earlier on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour on 107.5. There went my microphone. Where basically, hey, this guy is not going to be able to help us on the actual field during an actual game this year. So maybe you're looking at more of a scout team guy. Those are really valuable, actually, Wes. South Carolina has multiple scout team players of the week that are honored after every single game, after every single win. We got a lot of different categories, and scout team kind of MVPs is one of those. So those guys play a crucial part, but they're guys that realistically aren't going to see the field as much. The amount of freshmen that's going to play this year, Shane Beamer has been really deliberate about saying this multiple times in multiple different ways. And I think as a coaching staff, that's probably a little bit scary that you've got a pretty high number of freshmen that are set to play for you this year. Right now, Wes, I think realistically, it's double digits. It's 10 or more freshmen that are going to play. And when I say play, I don't mean they're going to play in the fourth quarter of the Furman game and you're not going to hear from them again. Guys that are actually going to play some meaningful snaps. And those could go up and down during the season. As you mentioned, Wes, there could be some freshmen that you feel like, hey, they're going to have to play. Now we need to get them ready these next 10 days. There might be some freshmen that you feel like are ready before you lace them up against North Carolina, and they go out there and they don't perform as well. To some degree, you don't know what you're going to get from a freshman until they get out there and the bullets start flying in a real, actual live game. So there are a bunch of guys in that category. I think that's a little bit scary for probably for Shane Beamer and his staff. The good thing is, though, from what I've heard, they do feel like they hit on a lot of these freshmen, and that's good for the future. It's good for the present because you are going to be relying on a lot of those guys starting in game one.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, Chris, and I want to keep this on our topic. But real quick, I already have a feeling that this current class, 2023 class, based on what we've heard about the guys they internally believe are hits, so evaluation hits, like, hey, this guy's who we thought he was. Doesn't mean he's quite ready. Doesn't even mean that they're all going to be superstars. But the number of guys we've heard, hey, I think this guy is going to be a contributor to our football program at some point in his career. I kind of have the feeling that 2023, and then you look at 2024 on paper, what they're going to have coming in that next year. It feels like to me, this is the group that is going to make up potentially the bulk, the core of South Carolina's future sort of, 2 to 3 to 4 years. Like you kind of have some guys that are rotating out. You lose Cam and Darius Rush from last year. This will be Spencer Rattler's last season, DeCarrion Joyner's last season, Juice Wells, Xavier Leggett, AB. You're going to have a lot of turnover. Again, not trying to get ahead of this season, but there a lot of these guys, that double-digit number, those guys that Beamer's already talking about, are going to potentially and probably likely make up the future core of South Carolina. I see Bruin Nation weighing in here. I believe that's probably a Lenore Sellers high school fan. And yeah, you're reading my mind. You kind of, you continue to hear great things. Another strong performance from Lenore Sellers in the scrimmage based on all indications. And that's certainly, when I say that, one of the guys that I'm thinking of. But Chris, let's try to give the folks a little bit of detail. What have you heard about the scrimmage? I've actually heard, man, that both scrimmages have been relatively clean compared to, like, kind of one of those things where, like, man, I've seen some rough scrimmages over my years. Scrimmage one, it was like, man, that was a pretty clean scrimmage to be scrimmage one. And it just sounds like, again, to kind of double down or triple down on all the Spencer Rattler talk about the camp he's having and the preseason he's having, it really just sounds like Rattler and these offensive skill guys have kind of been, frankly, on another level and have just kind of, I don't want to say ran things, but they sort of have, I would say, controlled things throughout preseason camp. It feels like to me.
Yeah, I think generally there have been good plays on both sides of the ball in all phases of the game in the first two scrimmages, and that's good. I think with where this team's at, that's probably what you want to hear, Wes. Now, the big thing that Shane Beamer has harped on, there have been a few in the offseason. Two of them have to do with the run game, running the ball, stopping the run. Right now, I think we need to call that a wash. I think we can have an opinion. We can have projections. We can say what we think is going to happen. I think we need to see it in a game that's not South Carolina versus South Carolina until we can say. I think we can say, hey, I think the defense will stop the run better. You'd be fair to argue that. You could say, hey, I think South Carolina will be okay in the run game, given some of the strides they made since spring, and you could have a good argument. But we just need to see it in a game. I think something that is a little bit easier to measure is the other big thing that Shane Beamer's talked about this offseason, and that is taking better care of the football. It's been a huge priority. He's called it embarrassing what they've done the last two seasons. They've led or been at the bottom of, whatever you want to say, of the SEC in turnovers offensively. And so what we have heard from the preseason as a whole, Wes, the offense has done a much better job at taking care of the football. And that does start with Spencer Rattler at the quarterback position. In Saturday's scrimmage, I was told the quarterbacks did not turn it over. So that's certainly a good sign. Now, the flip side of that is what we always talk about. Well, the defense, who's been first in the league in 2021 and third in the league in 2022 in creating turnovers, has not created as many. I tend to think, Wes, what we've seen this preseason is a little bit more of a reflection of legitimate improvement by the offense and just how Dowell Loggins is administering the offense, how Spencer Rattler is administering the offense. I get the sense that the staff has been very, very happy with how Spencer Rattler's played. They've given him a lot of freedom. They're going to give him a lot of freedom and latitude to make this offense his this season. And you talk to any of Rattler's teammates, you talk to people close to the program, and they all feel like he's confident and he's kind of taking his game to the next level.
Chris, along those same lines, man, I continue to feel like just skill players in general, like like Rattler is probably the guy that's just kind of been the superstar all camp, but you continue to hear about these other guys on offense, the tight end room, kind of continuing that over from the spring. We kind of heard that immediately. Hey, Trey Knox is as advertised. Josh Simon, maybe even better than advertised with what we expected out of him. Running back room has continued to come along. You know, I've heard they put those guys in a lot of different situations throughout camp to try and sort of see who was ready and who wasn't, and what they could do, what they couldn't do. And, you know, we talked about it months ago. They wanted to add another transfer running back. And we know that obviously didn't happen. So it was kind of like, all right, let's get these guys ready. And so DJ Braswell, I think from what I've heard, has really showed that upside that we thought he had. And I'll be very curious to see kind of where he is as far as the rotation. Is it more of a down the line, you know, later this season thing, or is he out there pretty much right off the bat at some point against North Carolina? You know, let's go through maybe a couple of storylines in terms of potential breakout guys. And Jeremy on Facebook coming in with a timely question. He says Omega Blake breakout time. Jeremy, I think yes. Now, I think, to be fair, I don't think that necessarily means Omega Blake, you know, leading receiver expectations at this point. You know, when healthy, I can't really see anybody passing Juice, Luedecke, and AB. Like that's your trio, right? Like that's your core, that's your guys. However, as we're starting to get a feel for who's next up, who's on that next line, who are your second team receivers, and also in the case of Juice being banged up right now, who has stepped up to be the receiver that's on the field with Luedecke and AB, I think we got to give Omega Blake a lot of credit, Chris. Like, he has made plays. That he made that play on social media that, you know, the team posted, but it's been more than that. He has taken a step forward, and I think they probably, not to put words in the staff's mouth, but I think they probably started to feel a good bit better about, hey, if Blake has to go in there, or if we have to rotate guys in, you know, I would imagine you're looking at Eddie Lou, Omega Blake, and then some guys kind of battling with Peyton Mangrum. To me, it's kind of like either Peyton Mangrum or one of the freshmen potentially is fighting it out to be that third reserve. It's just the vibe, the feel I get based on what we see and hear.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And you know, I think when we say, or the question that was posed from Jeremy, Omega Blake breakout time, yeah, not in the sense that he's going to, you know, be a 50 catch guy this year, right? Like that, he's not going to raise to the level to where he's going to unseat a Marion Brown and Xavier Luedecke and Juice Wells. I think AB and Xavier Luedecke, first of all, they've got more experience. They've played more ball. They've made some plays, but both of those guys have also had really good preseasons and really seem poised to take their game to the next level. So I think what Omega's done, Wes, is he's become a more consistent player. Spencer Rattler mentioned that he's got a high football IQ. He's always had physical ability. You know, look back at his time at South Point, playing high school quarterback, playing DB, playing some receiver. He showed some things from a physical standpoint that made you think that he had upside. It's just been, you know, I think a lack of consistency at times that's held him back. So that's not to say the job is done there, but he has become more consistent. And now he's a guy that I agree with you. It seems like the staff feels like they can count on, and he certainly can make some plays for you. So I anticipate that he will get some opportunities. That's actually an important storyline, Wes, because as we know, South Carolina kind of had, you know, like a top 5 last year in receivers. Juice was the lead dog, obviously, but you've lost 2 of those guys in Josh Vann and Jalen Brooks. And you feel good about your starters, but the guys behind them, kind of alongside them, have been more of a question mark. So Blake, you know, kind of elevating his game and his potential to produce has been a positive, I think, this preseason.
Yeah, for sure. He's always had some, you know, some ability. Like, this is a guy made a bunch of plays in high school. You know, there was talk about would Carolina offer? Would they go after him? And they made that decision and obviously landed him. But he's always had talent. So another Rock Hill guy, South Point guy, and certainly someone that's kind of just been on a career progression where he's steadily made steps forward. And I think unless you're an impact guy right off the bat, that's what you want to see. Just kind of stick around, keep developing, keep pushing. And that is what, by all indications, Emeka Blake has done so far. Defensive side, Chris, I kind of feel like, and again, this to go back to what you said earlier about we need to see it on the field, talking about running game and stopping the run. I'm a little bit in that category with this, but I think we have seen and heard enough to believe this is worth mentioning as a storyline. And that, to me, is the continued push from these linebackers. And that obviously will have a direct impact, a direct correlation with the run defense as well. But I just think overall linebacker play, I had posted on our front page in one of my confidentials prior to camp starting. I had picked up that, hey, like internally, they're very happy with the progress of really this entire linebacker group. But at the time, and I posted that, you also are kind of saying, all right, that's good. They've done everything's asked of them. But what does that mean when you're playing real opponents? You're matched up with another offense. And we still, to be fair, cannot quite answer that question. But doesn't it feel like not just Stone Blanton, who we heard about a ton in the spring, doesn't it kind of just feel like Stone and Debo Williams have sort of made that next progression within their career? I get the feeling Clayton White is pretty excited about having those guys in there. And then there's not as much pressure on Mo Kaba as he continues to get back. Pup Howard, a true freshman, has made some noise. Bam Martin Scott has been banged up a little bit, but they're excited about him too, man. I really feel like you have a group there that bumps up the overall athleticism. We've talked about that before, but I just kind of feel like we need to double down on the progress from that group. It's a real storyline to talk about at this point.
Yeah, and that is, when I mentioned earlier that you could make the argument that the run defense is going to be better, that is a huge reason for me why. Just the improvement at the linebacker position. This is a team that I think athletically at linebacker, this is going to be the deepest that South Carolina has been in a while. Pup Howard's a 6'4", 240-pound true freshman, but you're not having to count on him to come in and start for you. You can, like you said, it takes some of the pressure off him. It takes some of the pressure off of Mo Kaba. It allows Clayton White and his staff to be able to rotate these guys and keep them fresh, and to keep, really another thing, Wes, keep great competition going. Debo Williams, who we're going to have on the Garnet Trust Hour tomorrow on 107.5 The Game, he has definitely improved, I think, from being mostly a special teams guy in year one to continuing to come along and play more and more snaps last season. Now he's in prime position, Wes, to open the season as a starter, alongside Stone Blanton. Stone always what Clayton White calls a GPS linebacker. He's someone that just can find the ball. He's got a really bright football mind. He's healthier this year. He's in better shape. He's trimmed some weight so he can move around better, and he's just more comfortable, I think, in the defense and as a college football player. So I think it's safe to say that athletically they've upgraded, but also they've got more depth, I think, than last season, more proven. Not that this group is totally proven, but they've got more depth of some guys that have actually played meaningful snaps. And I think there's reason to believe this group, they'll hit you. Debo Williams and Stone Blanton, they're hitters. They like to seek out where the football is. And so just being a little bit more consistent there and being able to make a few more plays, I think it does give you some reason to feel like they could be better there.
Yeah, and I like to obviously say if I'm wrong, not that I even maybe express this explicitly, but I kind of in my mind had wondered, like, is Debo Williams going to be a guy who ultimately is a starter type for South Carolina, or is it more going to be like he's one of these guys who plays a lot in his career, but it's more as a reserve, given solid minutes off the bench and being a special teams guy, frankly. And I think he has started to prove like, hey, I'm here. I'm making progress. I've got a chance to start, and it sounds like is going to get the opportunity to go prove it on the field against opponents as well. I frankly kind of thought Kaba may step right back up in there and take one of these starting spots, but I think it speaks to what Stone and Debo have done so far that they have been, kind of holding him off from everything we see and hear. And I mean, dude, like you said, Debo, this guy, I mean, he wants to knock your head off. And even when you just talk to Debo, seeing him at our kickoff party on Saturday, wearing his football guy shirt, he is, I mean, he is a football guy all the way.
Yeah, his mentality is really something. And I think definitely encourage everyone, tune into 107.5 The Game tomorrow, 10 a.m. Tuesday, August 22nd. Hear from Debo. His mentality is something else. Debo is one of those guys that has that mentality of being slighted. Even maybe if you haven't slighted him, he's kind of got that. And I think for him, Wes, the key is just he's another guy with consistency, right? And just becoming more and more comfortable in the defense. He's always had the ability to hit people. He's always brought that, and he's still got it. And now I think he's more comfortable, in Clayton White's scheme, just from a positioning standpoint. And that shows, right? The fact that Mo Kaba right now isn't a stone cold lock to be a starter, I think doesn't really have anything to do with Mo or his progression in coming back from the knee. I honestly think it's exactly what you said. And it's just that Stone Blanton, someone that the staff has been eyeing since the end of last season, is, hey, this guy's going to need to take a big step forward, and we think he will, and he is. He's done that, but then Debo Williams has really done the same thing.
William Jones on YouTube asking, defense a little better than last year or a lot better than last year? William, ask us again in 14 days.
Exactly. I'll make it easy, or not easy, but we'll at least have a game where we can figure that one out.
I was thinking about this today, Chris. By the way, so Wade, if you want to listen to 107.5 in North Carolina, there is an app, or you just go to 107.5thegame.com. Either way, you can listen live from anywhere at any time. So make sure you check that out. And so, except the only time you can't, I believe, is during the games because 107.5 app does not have rights to stream the games. You got to get the Gamecocks, like the official Gamecocks app for that, I think is how that works. But, Chris, is it possible that South Carolina ends up being close to as good at defensive back this year as they were last year? Like, I kind of feel like they're obviously going to miss Cam Smith. They're going to miss Darius Rush. But I feel like Marcellus Dow is like just in a really, really good place mentally right now. And we knew he had the ability, the talent to lock people down. He seems very just excited about, this is my chance to take over that role. I'm the number one guy now. I'm the lockdown corner. And OD Fortune, by all indications, has really just taken a step in all facets of his life and career, which is a great sign for him. You got DQ back a year, with a year's experience. Nick E back a year's experience. David Spalding in there, Keenan Nelson in there, Jalen Kilgore in there. We'll see what it looks like with depth at corner. But could we end up saying, hey, the secondary as a whole just as good or better than last year, or is that far-fetched?
No, it's not. Well, it's not far-fetched. It's one of those things you could argue, which I think is why you asked the question. It's a good question. Here's how I look at it right now. So I found a stat out this morning, Wes, that I did not know. This may blow your mind too. Marcellus Dial played more snaps last season than either Cam Smith or Darius Rush, which I did not know. But you look at what he did down the stretch. So look at the Clemson game. Rush and Smith both played in that one. Clemson didn't really seem, and it's probably a decent game plan, they didn't really want any of Darius Rush or Cam Smith. They weren't going to test those guys. So they decided to test Marcellus Dial, and he made an A+. They did not complete a ball on him, and he had a pick. Point is, he played a lot last year even. This isn't like, you mentioned like the phrasing far-fetched. Like Marcellus Dial being a good player is not far-fetched. He played plenty last year. You don't have to really imagine that. And will he take a step this year as he goes into the spotlight of being the number one corner? Yes, I do think so. But you do have to keep in mind that in that corner rotation, he played a lot. And you're losing Rush, you're losing Smith. They're both on NFL rosters doing really good things. And OD Fortune has experience, right? He's made some plays. I still tend to think from a net gain or loss, I can't say you're as good there. I just can't go there yet. And part of that is because Dial did play a lot last year, and he's back. Now, they could still end up being good there. At safety and nickel, you could be better. And the guys you mentioned, DQ and Nicky Manwari, they're the reason why. And so does that position will almost 100% be better. Like that's pretty much a lock because they're going from freshman to sophomore. We know the mentality those guys have. They're just pros with how they go about things. They're very confident. They're talented. They had really good freshman years, but they have a lot of room to improve, which is exciting. So if you say corner not quite as good, nickel and safety better, what does that come out to? So that's kind of how I look at it. I just think you feel a good bit better about safety because you do have those guys back. Nickel, you've got your personnel back. And then you add in a guy like a Jalen Kilgore, like you said, Wes, who can give you some depth. It's a pretty good picture there.
Quantrell knows asking what was Dial's recruitment like. He says seems like he was really underrated. Yeah, I mean he was a JUCO guy, so kind of just went under the radar. If you talk to people nearby where he's from in the upstate, they always thought this guy could be a really good cover corner. And to Chris' point, so the reason the way it played out last year, him playing all his snaps, people forget he was a day one, like a game one starter on this team. They had Cam Smith playing nickel, partially to get Dial on the field because they thought that was their best combination. Now, some guys got banged up, and then you had DQ playing nickel, and you were kind of moving guys around. Then most of the guys got healthy, and you'll remember they kind of went back as the season got towards the end. They wanted Cam Smith at nickel to match up with Jalen Hyatt. And it worked out so well that they kept that combination for Clemson. But also remember you had Darius was banged up and in and out of the game, and OD Fortune played quite a bit against Clemson as well. So at times Marcellus was kind of the next guy up at corner, but at times he was a starter on the outside and on the field with Darius and Cam. So dude has played a lot, and I think probably just used last year as a springboard into being really confident this year. And this program, Chris, for whatever reason, this program has found a way to replace defensive backs with just the next guy up who ends up being a really good defensive back in his own right. And Torian Gray, I mean, I don't think there's a better guy in the world at getting his group better, like getting his group ready than old T. Gray. So he'll have them ready. Whatever their strengths are, they'll find a way to kind of accentuate the strengths. They'll try to hide any weaknesses. And, he'll have that group 100% ready, I feel like.
This Wes, the least amount of questions that South Carolina's had in the secondary going into a season under Shane Beamer? If so, that probably bodes pretty well. You do have questions because, losing Rush and Smith, let's not gloss over that. Those are big losses. Big losses. I mean, both alpha type guys, leader type guys who did a lot of different things for you. Rush, so good on special teams. Smith, really good, underrated in run support, So don't gloss over that. But this is certainly the best you felt about the safety position since Beamer got here. But Torian Gray, like you said, he's figured it out every year. He's really maximized what this team's had. And arguably, they have the most they've had to work with. Not necessarily at corner, but at when you just look at the whole picture of the defensive back room, I think this is the best position that they've been in from just a pure personnel standpoint, accounting for all the positions. So that should be exciting given Torian Gray's track record.
Yeah, the final remaining question is how quickly can they bring along an Emory Floyd, a Judge Collier, Vakari Swain, kind of that group. How ready will they be to step in when called upon? Because you are going to, frankly, need those guys at some point this season. But as you said, T. Gray will have them prepared. You know who else will have you prepared for what you might need in life? That's our friends at Liberty Tax, 803-462-5576. Saw our boy Kev Roche at the party. He said, man, I feel like Clint.Hammond is a celebrity that I need to meet. He was talking about taxiety and how Liberty Tax could cure his taxiety. Advertising works with Kev, apparently. Hopefully it works with everybody else. And Chris, Larry and his team went ahead and got you a head start on your taxes, man.
I texted with Larry this morning, Wes. Would you believe that? They has helped me out so much. Met with him and his team. They do an outstanding job. They can help cure your taxiety if you have any. Or you know what? Mine didn't even creep up. Like I had none. I just got out ahead of it. Little preventative measures to make sure you don't develop any taxiety. Get your plan together. If you're behind on your taxes, if you want to get ahead on your taxes, whatever the tax situation is, Larry and the team at Liberty Tax, they can help you out. Give them a call. 2 locations out in Irmo.
803-462-5576. Chris, South Carolina gets the news on, or I guess the news broke is, I guess, the best way to say it. They had gotten the news a couple of days earlier, but Drew Tuazama, addition to the roster, a edge guy, defensive end from UAB, and someone that really played all over the line of scrimmage for UAB. They had him inside, they had him outside. Talented guy, was a very productive, very talented, skilled basketball player in high school. Went the prep route. Was at Syracuse, was at JUCO, was at UAB. Really came on strong for UAB later in the season last year and put up some big numbers for Dilfer and that program. And so, Chris, he hits the portal as a grad transfer this summer, commits to South Carolina at the end of this past week, and now will enter that room, which I think we felt like was coming along. There was progress being made. They were building depth. This is just another piece, though, that could help them this season. What do you think is realistic to expect from Drew Tuazama now, like right off the bat, with kickoff being in less than 2 weeks? But then really, what are the expectations for week 6, week 7, kind of as this year progresses?
So I think Drew Tuazama has the potential to maybe become a starter this season for South Carolina. Will that happen? I couldn't tell you. I don't even know if people in the building could tell you. I do believe, based on what I've heard, that the potential is there. As we know, the edge position does still have some questions. You feel better about it than you did in the spring, and one reason for that is because of the presence of Drew Tuazama, the presence of JT Gear, Desmond Yu taking a step forward, Brian Thomas and Tyreek Johnson taking a step forward, Jordan Strong coming back healthy. You feel better about it. But there's still an opening there for somebody to come in and take some snaps or even become a starter at one of the spots. So this is a kid listed at 275, Wes. We've heard he's more like 265, which is not small by any means. Plenty of size, 6'5", 265, great size for Drew Tuazama, former basketball player. So there's some athleticism there. The thing to remember is this, among others, when he comes in and he is practicing with the team, he has to go through the NCAA's acclimatization period. And so that means on day 6, you can be in full pads. Everybody goes through it every single year, whether you're a freshman, walk, doesn't matter. So he's got to go through that at South Carolina. What that means is on his clock, once he's in full pads, you are now pretty much into your North Carolina prep. And he has not had time to really get completely acclimated to things like in full pads. So he's played college football. He's been at JUCO. He's been at 2 college programs. He's not completely new to the college game, but it's an adjustment. You're learning a different defensive scheme. You're learning, how Sterling Lucas wants his techniques performed. So there's things to learn. So game 1, you probably should temper the expectations. Would it be a shock if he played? No. But I could see, Wes, as the season goes on, his talent, kind of catching up, him getting more and more comfortable with things, and then the snap count starting to rise.
Yeah, and you rattled off some of the guys, man, but obviously Jordan Strong's return was a huge boost for that group. And then JT Gear, who was kind of running with the 2s, then was out there with the 1s when we were out there last. We only see that small viewing window. You got Tyreek Johnson still competing for playing time there as well. But, we saw Gear at the kickoff party as well. That's a good-looking kid, man. Like, I think that the thing with Strong, the thing with Gear and Tuazama, and then Tyreek Johnson, as he has sort of developed physically in his career, is those guys look like you want SEC edge guys to look. And then, man, I mean, seeing Des Umeozulu at the kickoff party as well, I didn't realize how just physically big he is at this point in his career. Looked like a guy who has added some strength, added some muscle in Luedecke's program over the summer. And obviously, we know Sterling Lucas, one of the best at bringing his guys along. So I'm ready to see what this group looks like against other opponents. Like, can they break down top SEC offensive tackles? We'll find out. But I think in terms of in-house progression, feeling good about your guys, feeling like you have a chance, I think it's played out about as well as it possibly could have this offseason.
Yeah, it has. This isn't a create a player situation on NCAA where you can create John Smith, make him a 99 on everything, put him in the state of South Carolina and go recruit him and have a great chance of landing him. What you needed to happen, Wes, was you need to go out and get a couple guys in the portal who could play. You're going to be limited by who's in the portal, who's attainable. They've done pretty well in the portal, I think, with who they got. They've got some guys with multiple years of eligibility who can also immediately help this year. You needed Des Umeozulu to be what you thought he would be. And understanding that he's a freshman, it appears he is that. And you needed some other guys to step up and get better. I think we've seen Brian Thomas Jr. put on 20 pounds of weight in the offseason. He can help you from a pass rush standpoint. Tyreek Johnson had probably one of his best sessions of practice since he's been here. And then obviously Jordan Strong has a lot of experience and he has appeared to come back healthy. So I totally agree with that, Wes. It's all about, like Shane Beamer talks about, maximizing what your team has. There's not going to be, this isn't a room full of 4 first-team All-SEC guys. It is not. But with where they are in their program's development, I think they've done pretty well here at taking what you had in the spring and then making a leap before the season. I think the picture looks a good bit better. Again, not a dominant group, but they have improved the picture from the spring, which was a huge goal.
How do you feel about interior D-line, man? Like, I feel like that's a spot they're probably looking for that to be a strength potentially of the defense. Tonka continuing to come along. You got Boogie, you got TJ Sanders, Barrett, a big dude that I think we talk about. We try to throw him in there, but a lot of people kind of leave him out. And, then after that, you still have Elijah Davis coming along and Zay McLeod coming along too. So I think you kind of feel like that group has some depth, has some younger guys that you're bringing along. And but they're going to need to talk about maximizing. You're going to need those guys to be what your upperclassmen. Like the expectations kind of go up a little bit for that group, I think.
Yeah, and they lost a key player to the NFL and Zach Pickens, and I think you feel pretty good about what you've got coming back. From a depth standpoint, you probably feel better about defensive tackle and the interior guys than, the edge spot. There's more, I think, proven guys there. TJ Sanders is someone that the staff kind of, and I'm just kind of making this up, Wes, not the notion of it, but just the terminology, almost like a third starter at defensive tackle. Not that all three guys are going to be in there at once, obviously. That could be that in some packages. But TJ is a guy that, if not for Tonka being an upperclassman and Boogie Huntley being a year older and an upperclassman, and both those guys just having really good preseasons and already playing a good bit here, he would be a starter. But they have, fortunately for South Carolina, established some depth there. But I get the sense that TJ Sanders is kind of viewed as like a super sub type of guy that can come in and do some really good things for you, which is nice. I mean, he's a starter quality, starter caliber guy who you may be bringing off the bench, but probably still going to play plenty. So, yeah, Nick Barrett, underrated guy. I mean, he'll play a role in special teams, I think, potentially. Boogie will. I mean, Pete Limbo is using all types of guys on special teams.
How many Knicks will make impacts on this team this year? I mean,
well, we're probably forgetting one. I mean, at least 3. Those are right off the top of my head.
Well, there's at least 4.
4, yeah, at least 4. Yeah, see, I did forget one right off the bat. Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
I forgot that Barrett was a Nick as well, but you got obviously Nick Imamori, Nick Carter, Nick Garzula. So
yeah.
That's the trend on this team.
At least 4 Knicks. We'll go through the roster and make sure we don't forget another one. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we are or not. But anyway, Chris, let's hit a little bit of Cruton. Daniel Hill, Wednesday, South Carolina, Alabama. There's been a top group, but it feels like those have been the top 2 for as long as I can remember. At one point, Tennessee kind of a little bit in there.
In there.
It's come down to South Carolina, Jody Wright, Montario Hardesty versus Alabama. You got Nick Saban obviously involved. You got Robert Gillespie. It's a blast from the past there, former South Carolina. System. I mean, the whole Alabama staff coached at South Carolina at some point in their past.
Except somehow not Nick Saban, unfortunately for the Gamecocks.
Yes, he did not. But so, I mean, 2 days away. Gamecocks still feel good. I think we still feel like South Carolina's in the best spot. It's kind of like we've been saying for actually weeks now, Chris, maybe months. Get to the finish line. And, we've continued to check in. I've also I've been paying attention to what Sam Spiegelman, Chad Simmons, what they're saying as well. I always like to make sure it kind of matches up with what we're hearing. All signs pointing to the Gamecocks, but you gotta get to the finish line, right?
You do have to get to the finish line. And somebody on the Insiders Forum, Wes, asked me today, still feeling good about South Carolina for Daniel Hill? The answer was, right now I do. And so, look, I think anytime Alabama, Nick Saban, anytime they're involved, you were going to be tracking it up until the last minute. But the Gamecocks have done a great job here. They've been in the best position for a while. There are a lot of positive signs. And you got to finish this one out. You got to close it out. Here's the thing also, Wes. I mean, we got to keep this in mind. Daniel Hill's not signing anything on Wednesday, right? And so I would anticipate Bama not giving up regardless, but it would be hugely exciting to get him in the boat. It is sometimes for many guys, it's a little bit harder to break up once you're publicly in the boat. And so if you're the Gamecock staff, you would absolutely love to get this guy to pair with Matthew Fuller in your running back room. Fuller had a huge game, Wes, this past weekend, and his return to high school action for Wayne County will be a massive get for South Carolina.
Yeah, speaking of Fuller, man, I know you had your sort of breakdown of what the guys did on this past Friday night. High school football is in the air. It is upon us. Hill's first game, from what I didn't realize this, but what Tyler had said on our show earlier, his first game of the year is actually this Thursday. So he'll be committing somewhere on Wednesday. Then we'll have a game on Thursday. But Chris, Fuller, I mean, Carolina kind of, I feel like, thought they had a steal with this kid. Charles Power already has him as a 4-star, kind of anticipated that he was going to have a big senior year. Certainly appears to be off to a great start as far as that is concerned.
13 carries, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns. So a decent start. I don't know. That's like almost 30 yards a carry, over 25 yards a carry. So pretty good. But yeah, this is a kid that flew under the radar. South Carolina liked him more than some other more highly ranked, more highly known and visible running backs, guys that were 4-stars at the time. And Fuller's a guy that's got good size, good vision, good balance, and also plays 4A ball there in Georgia. So certainly not bad competition. And also has, I think, probably some underrated speed. So again, that good looks like a good get for the Gamecocks. Pairing Daniel Hill, who's just a big athletic guy at that running back position. So much talk about restocking the running back room, especially with the number of upperclassmen on South Carolina's roster. That would be about as good as you could do it, I think, in this class. It'd be a great group for them.
Yeah, for sure, man. So certainly we'll keep watching. I thought it was funny. Charles Power said he wanted to see Fuller have a little bit higher yards per carry his senior year.
There we go.
Off to a pretty good start on that. Daniel Johnson asking, no chance Mississippi State shocks with Daniel Hill. I mean, that would be the shock of all shocks.
Yes.
There's been virtually no indication of that whatsoever. So, I don't see that happening. And yes, I always wonder, is it Macandino or Macandino podcast? Help me out here, but Macandino podcast, Nick Elksness. There is another Nick.
There you go. I'm ashamed, Wes. We did bad on that.
Dude, this is officially a thing. Like, too
many of them.
There are a lot of Nicks on this team.
Yeah, way too many of them.
That should be a T-shirt, I feel like. There's something in there. There's a pun or a T-shirt. There's something to be done there, to be had. But yeah, we'll certainly keep y'all updated on Daniel Hill leading into Wednesday. And obviously, if he commits to South Carolina, as expected, we'll have plenty after, as we always do. And let's see, Chris. So I was trying to pull it up. Here it is. Schedule for this week. Obviously, we said it earlier. Players are off on Monday, but players will be speaking on Tuesday at noon. Shane Beamer will speak 1:30 at noon. Both coordinators at 12:30 on Wednesday. And let's see. That's it as far as availability. Yeah, they got practice, but no availability the rest of the week. But so you got a Beamer, your press conference. You're going to hear from Clayton White, hear from Dow Loggins. I imagine maybe Pete Limbo steps in and gives us an update as well, Chris.
Peter Limbo, if he feels like it, and typically he
hope.
does. Yeah, we certainly hope he feels like it. Wes, I have one more update for the people. Are we close to closing out the show?
Yes, we are very close. Why don't you give an update and we can close it out then?
Here's my update. We got good numbers today. Very much appreciate everybody. People are hungry for that football, Wes. They're ready for it. So I have something cool for you. If you're already a member of Gamecock Central, we very much appreciate you. We love you. Thank all of y'all who came out for the Gamecock Central kickoff party too. That was completely awesome. If you're not a member, you want to give us a try. Wes, I verified earlier, this is still live, probably for a limited time. $1 for your first month. After that, it's regular price. $1 for your first month, GamecockCentral.com. All you got to do is go to GamecockCentral.com. You don't need a promo code. There should be a green banner up there. $1 for your first month. You can select that. Give us a try. Wes and I are still going to do this show. If you don't want to join, that's fine. We're not mad at you. We'll still do GC Live. We'll still have a great time interacting with y'all. But if you want to support our work, you want to be a member of GamecockCentral.com, you get access to all our content, the Insiders Forum. You come chat with us on there, chat with other Gamecock fans, get access to all our content. Check it out. $1 for your first month.
Pretty good deal, Chris.
It's a great deal. It's a fantastic deal.
Y'all hang tight. I'm trying to find the link. I'm gonna drop y'all a link. I want to hook people up with more things this year, Chris.
That's what we do. That's what we do. Shout out to Bake. Bake was at the Bake. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know if we got to talk, but he made a comment about how we looked like we were feeling good at the kickoff party. And we did. We felt great. We had a great day, great night. But he joined up recently, took advantage of a promo last week on Gamecock Central. So we very much appreciate that too.
Chris, what if we also find a way to give away tickets?
Ooh, I would love that.
Hold on, y'all hang tight.
Tickets to a football game?
Well, I mean, yeah, I got nothing. I was going to try to think of something creative, but yes.
Something smart, Alex.
South Carolina. Yeah, South Carolina football team. The South Carolina football game. All right, here we go. Go to this link. This is provided by our friends at 107.5, so let me make sure to say that. But win tickets to the home opener, South Carolina versus Furman. If you're on the video version of the show, I just posted that in the comments on YouTube and Facebook. So sign up. All you got to do is put your name and email in there, and we'll pick a winner at some point. So Wade's saying, I really do need to join GC. Well, Wade, you just said that we're your go-to source for information. So,
and Wes, we got that, and then you've got a promo, $1 for your first month. Seems like a good match.
Seems like a great match.
Seems like a great match.
But if you don't want to join, then at least sign up for this ticket giveaway.
Oh, absolutely. Might as well.
And maybe we'll send you to Wade says he's in. We're going to hold you to that, Wade. We're going to hold you to that. But so yeah, go to the season opener, the season home opener on us. Travis wants to know if we're going to have a show in Charlotte. I don't know.
Wes and I are trying to we got the kickoff party. Wes and I are both day to day on the report. So we that would be cool, Wes. That would be fun.
We're going to be there, right?
We're going to be there, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet in our planning.
We'll let you know. But that's good to ask. We need to actually let you know. That's something we need to do a better job of this year, is telling people our schedule.
That is a good point.
That is going to be my New Year's resolution. So new year for football.
Yeah.
New football year resolution. Maybe that should be a thing. What is your football New Year's resolution for this year? Think about that. And then we'll have Mike on the show on Monday or Tuesday. And then later this week, we will all dive into our new football year resolution.
I know what it should be for everybody.
We can't tell them yet.
I'm not. I just already know. I've got it in my head.
That was fast. Everybody else spend a little bit more time thinking about it than Chris and get back to us. All right. For Chris, I'm Wes. This was fun. Glad to see all the numbers on here. I can tell everybody's excited until the season is here. We'll see y'all later this week.